Disruptive FM, the podcast that talks business in the era of the startup economy. The show Fox Business Network, CNBC, or Bloomberg wouldn't dare to replicate. We talk digital trends, social media technology, disruptive innovation, and digital transformation. Broadcasting from Seattle on the World Wide Mobile Web. Listen to us weekly. Download the Spreaker application today at the App Store or on Google Play. And follow us on Twitter at DisruptiveFM.
You give us 22 minutes weekly, we give you the tech business world. This is Disruptive FM. I'm your host, Jeff Colon, broadcasting from the beautiful and lovely and warm Pacific Northwest, the left coast, the Emerald City of Seattle. On this week's episode, Lynda.com, bought by LinkedIn. What does that mean for on-demand education? Is that the new emerging area of media? The renaissance of podcasting, a 10-year-old plus art form now going mainstream. And Collision Conference preview, the big Web Summit event in Las Vegas, May 4th through the 6th. Who are the startups that will be there? We'll take a little bit of a look at that and much more on this week's show. So it is good to be back. Another week in the seat of the broadcast booth. And a lot of great news out there that we got to touch on, definitely. Lynda.com. Probably the big news from about 2 weeks ago. Purchased by LinkedIn. Interesting area of exploration. On-demand education media has been quite popular for several years now. There's a lot of different players out there in the space. Many of them we know. Media Bistro is one. Disclaimer that I actually teach for Media Bistro. But big player in the space that actually was purchased by Prometheus Media, which owns Adweek and many of those publications, I believe last summer. Udemy, we have General Assembly, Skillshare, number of different players out there, but LinkedIn decides to basically purchase Lynda.com. And I think the big thing and the big learning here is we are now moving into that era where social networks go beyond being social networks. So as we've seen with Facebook, that really has become more of an advertising platform and a connection platform that we can reach a lot of the people that we want to reach, so to speak, or connect with them on a daily basis. But they've really moved more in terms of a ad targeting platform. Advertisers love it because they have rich data in which you can target messaging. And of course, that's their big revenue model. And now they're really moving into a space in video to take on YouTube. That'll be quite interesting to see how that evolves. But LinkedIn has always been sort of the economic graph of the social web. And if they think of themselves as an economic graph, them moving into the publishing space this past year made a lot of sense because of the fact that thought leadership and education can live in that sort of publishing world. You get a lot of people who are sort of smart and savvy in the business world. You allow them to publish original thought leadership, and you sort of crowdsource a number of different forms of expertise. Of course, they went out and did the right thing and actually got a lot of the top-level influencers that are out there. Richard Branson is one of them, of course, that publishes regularly there. Sir Martin Sorrell of WPP. But now they're moving, and I think moving more along that economic graph, and with this particular acquisition, They basically have said, we are going to start to really educate people on the platform in terms of online education resources. How do we give more of that to our users, so to speak? And that's fascinating in some respects because of the fact that there is a lot to learn in our new era. A 4-year degree, an advanced degree, doesn't necessarily add longevity anymore. We've seen this in many industries. You might come out of school with a computer science degree. It's hot, but in 10 years it's not necessarily hot because there's new languages that co-opt the old languages. There's new technologies that co-opt the old technologies, etc. So these are areas that I think they want to get more into by integrating lynda.com into the platform. And I think it's a really good move in terms of how they've sort of positioned themselves in the marketplace, so to speak, because you do have the fact that it's a differentiating factor. It is something that's very, very different from what other platforms are offering in the space. There is no real online education that exists on the likes of Facebook or Twitter, nor will they really go that route. That's not really what they're in the game of doing. That's not their business model, so to speak. So really big win. I guess the other underlying note to mention is lynda.com is a big win for a female tech executive because it was started and owned and operated by a woman, which is a great thing to see in the sense that there are there's a lot of really great startups out there that are run by women, but in this particular case, you have an organization founded by Linda Weinman back in 1995, sort of in the heyday of the early orbital or halcyon days of the web, and to see 20 years later that pay off in the form of the acquisition by LinkedIn is a great thing to see. So it's interesting to see where they'll go with that, how that's actually integrated into the platform, and what languages that will sort of be rolled out in, because it does provide a lot of its classes in German, French, Spanish, and English, and probably with the acquisition will probably move into other languages to offer at a global level, especially since LinkedIn is very, very popular, specifically in India right now, growing at a major clip in that particular geographical region. So let's get on our virtual plane as we've discussed an occurrence in Silicon Valley, since lynda.com is based out of Northern California, acquired by LinkedIn, which is in Mountain View. And let's fly a little bit east, or I should say a little bit, not just a little bit east, but quite far east, all the way to the other side of the coast, to New York City, and talk about the renaissance of podcasting. Now, some might say, hey, wait a minute, you're talking about a topic in Silicon Valley in California. Why don't you stay in that area, since podcasting really became popular, so to speak, mainly because of Apple and its sort of delivery system. And of course, one could state that is the case, but I think the secret to the success is actually happening as a result of many of the things that are occurring sort of in the larger Big Apple, so to speak, which is, how is podcasting becoming mainstream? And much of that is actually rooted in the advertising community within New York City, and why it's becoming a mainstream item. Of course, NPR, many people point to NPR over the fact that they had the Serial podcast, which is sort of tipped podcasting, since it is a 10-plus-year-old art form. And I actually have to put a small plug in for an old podcast that I did with my old co-worker Gemma Craven, who now works at Spreadfast. We worked together for many years at Ogilvy and Mather, the advertising agency in New York City. We did a wonderful podcast for many years between 2012 and 2011 through 2013, called the Wednesday Word on Social. And that was a lot of fun. It was very, very easy to put together, and we had a wonderful audience. And that is probably the big reason for the mainstream factor. There are so many podcasts out there because of the fact that they are very, very inexpensive to create. A grand example is what I'm doing here. I have a podcast-ready microphone. I'm plugged into my laptop. I'm running software provided by Spreaker, and basically recording this and then distributing it throughout the social web. So the economics obviously are compelling. It is disruptive in some respects. It is a disruptive innovation in terms of the cost of producing a television show or a radio show or even online video. We now know that to create something online doesn't necessarily mean it's cheap anymore. There's still a large high-end of production cost that's involved in that. But advertisers, I think, are very, very fascinated with it, which is why we're centering our focus here in New York City. But there's another reason. New York City has one of the largest mass transit systems in the world. And when you go underground, you can't listen to FM or AM radio signals. Not that anyone would really be doing that anymore in 2015. But the on-demand capabilities have really allowed it to grow tenfold. Being able to listen wherever you are has really allowed it to explode. And so actually another technology besides the sort of mass transit system that's making it really make headway, I think, in 2015 is cars. Because why are we dedicating time to the AM/FM spectrum anymore, which is littered with advertising, when we can listen to a show that we find interesting? We can connect with another person through their voice to talk about or listen to a number of different subjects, or hear music that they can sort of feature for us since they may be experts in that particular area. And car-based listeners are captive. They tune in for long stretches at a time. And I know this now from sitting in much of the traffic here in Seattle. It is just a mess in some respects. I yearn for the days of actually sitting in a subway and being able to, be clogged in with a number of other riders. But in any case, there's the captive audience that actually exists, and they are very valuable to advertisers. And if we think about it, car drivers are still dedicated to the AM/FM spectrum. Even in 2013, according to a Pew Research Center and Nielsen Audio, 91% of Americans over the age of 12 listen to the radio on a weekly basis. Now, though, cars are going online. And we're seeing this, of course, because of a lot of technology integrations and innovations from Google and Apple and other companies that are car connecting to larger platforms. And connected cars are that new boon to an entire streaming audio industry. and especially to podcast makers like myself, whose shows are perfectly suited to in-car listening. So just as we've had the TV watcher explosion move to sort of Netflix or Hulu or Amazon streaming, radio listeners will soon have a bevy of on-demand options at their disposal. And thus, the reason why we are undergoing a major renaissance in this area. Of course, we can't overlook the fact that software makers have been a boon to the industry as well. Apple, whose iTunes provided the launching pad for most early podcasts, gave podcasts their own non-deletable app on their latest version of its mobile operating system. And of course, there's several third-party apps that have popped up recently around serving up podcasts. So all of this is really leading to a whole new area, and we are sort of on the ground floor. And for a very long period of time, I think, radio had been saved from disruption. It was the oldest of old media, but it still functioned and it still made a lot of revenue. And it protected itself compared to other forms of media, such as television and film and music. But it no longer is that the case. Your mobile phone is now a 24/7, 365 radio in your pocket at all times. And now that all cars are connected, this form is going to flourish again and flourish big. So let's get back on that plane, that virtual plane of ours, and head west to Sin City for our next discussion, Collision Conference 2015, from the makers of Web Summit in Dublin, Ireland. They ran it last year. Going to be a big event this year, May 4th through the 6th in downtown Las Vegas. You can check out more at collisionconf.com. That's collisionconf.com. A couple of the things to note about the conference, which is very, very interesting. It has been named sort of the Davos for geeks. Any startup who is a startup trying to sort of be captured is there from around the globe. There's a lot of interesting companies that exhibit, a lot of marketers that attend, a lot of tech press that obviously is there. So I'll actually be in attendance. I'm actually going to broadcast a couple shows from there while I'm at the event. But a couple previews to check out in terms of some of the startups that will be in attendance. 10 that we'll list here, and you can read more on the Collision blog. Cinch, which I actually spoke about a little bit earlier this year, really cool platform that actually allows developers to integrate different types of communication tools into any app, especially their voice automated features, and it lowers the costs for developers in that respect. They will be one of the startups in attendance. Blacklane from Germany, which is a company in the ground transportation and professional driver services segment. They're based in Berlin, and they're going to be looking to broaden their U.S. presence. Narrative, they are basically a storytelling venture that is backed by a number of investors, including Disney and Greylock Partners, and they connect brands to Snapchat through influencers and tech, and are known a lot for their work with Red Bull. Design Crowd, an online marketplace providing logo, website, print, and graphic design services by providing access to freelance designers and studios around the world. They help tap into the best international design talent around at a low cost, and they're Australian-based. Hexo Plus, a flying camera that follows and films you autonomously. Just attach a GoPro to the drone, set your framing in the app, and you're good to go. 3 Consumer Electronics Showcase prizes have just awarded this revolutionary user experience. Breathtaking camera movements footage without a pilot. Interesting. That might change actually the film industry in some respects. Mautic, they are on a mission to make your marketing both automatic and personal. Gives you the power to track leads, personalize your engagement, and offer value to your prospects. They will be in attendance. Inmoji, they're hoping to make clickable brand icons more common in messaging, and they are empowering a new generation of consumers by providing interactive tools for enhancing digital lifestyles. Van Hawks, they began their journey on Kickstarter and are fundamentally rethinking urban transportation and cycling. They say, you're connected, why shouldn't your bike be? Interesting. Moving into the Internet of Things with bikes now. The carbon fiber bike can connect to a smartphone, and the features are pretty impressive. Connected Data, which was founded in 2011, which allows ones to share large files over the web. They are set to create a better and simpler way for consumers, professionals, and small businesses to share access and protect their data. And Seaters, they help fill empty seats at events for you. They ensure both maximum fan experience and maximum return for organizers and sponsors by filling empty seats in sport and music events worldwide. The platform disrupts the market of ticketing sales by generating a first-minute qualified demand. Always good to see something that's going to disrupt Ticketmaster in some respects. So those are 10 of the 508. Yes, you heard that correctly. 508 startups that will be at Collision Conference May 4th through the 6th in Las Vegas.
Disruptive FM, the podcast that talks business in the era of the startup economy. The show Fox Business Network, CNBC, or Bloomberg wouldn't dare to replicate. We talk digital trends, social media technology, disruptive innovation, and digital transformation. Broadcasting from Seattle on the worldwide mobile web. Listen to us weekly. Download the Spreaker application today at the App Store or on Google Play. And follow us on Twitter at DisruptiveFM.
You gave us 22 minutes. We gave you the tech business world. That's it for the show this week. You can find me next week. I'll be in Portland, Oregon for Hero Conference. Follow at hashtag Hero, CONF, HeroConf. And then, of course, May 4th through the 6th at Collision Conference in Vegas. Speak to you next week.